Welcome back, racing fans. Today we're diving into the heart of McLaren's current situation, a team full of promise, yet tangled in internal conflicts, as the Constructors' Championship looms closer. McLaren's dream of victory seems to be slipping away. Will they overcome the growing tension between their drivers, or will their rivalry cost them the championship? Let's break down the latest from the world of Papaya Orange and see if McLaren can steer their way back to glory. McLaren, however, is experiencing a decline in their situation in Papaya Orange. At this very moment, they are on the verge of assuming the top spot in the Constructors' Championship. As each race progresses, it is becoming increasingly apparent that McLaren does not wish to make the difficult decision of deciding which driver is their best. In spite of this, they will suffer consequences in the long run due to the fact that the drivers are already exhibiting indicators of a broken relationship. Is it possible for them to collaborate in order to find a solution to this issue? The Fishers and Lando and Oscar's relationship started to show when they got together. It was inquired of them whether or not McLaren ought to support Lando Norris in his competition for the championship against Max Verstappen. At this time, it became abundantly evident that not a single member of the crew actually has any idea what is going on. Oddly enough, I am unable to do it. My opinion is that you, as a driver, do not want things to move in that direction. We are not actually running out of time, but the amount of time we have left is decreasing. It is not permissible for me to select that option. Please don't make any comments, Piastri. Right now, things aren't going very well, and the events that took place over the weekend made things even more difficult. During the race at Monza, Lando Norris was once again in the pole position, but he was unable to win. His partner, Oscar Piastri, took the lead in the race after the British driver gave it up on the opening lap of the race. Another close race was going to take place in Italy as a result of this. With crucial points after escaping Norris, he believes that McLaren came extremely close to disaster and that Piastri was the primary cause of it this time. He believes this because he has critical points. Prior to the Grand Prix that took place this past weekend, the majority of the headlines around McLaren was favorable. Following their impressive victory at Zandvoort and their perfect 1-2 performance in qualifying, the Papaya crew was in a fantastic mood. The team that Andrea Stella is leading, on the other hand, is getting into problems for making the typical mistakes. Another error in strategy was committed by McLaren when they decided to put both drivers on the two-stop plan simultaneously. Particularly peculiar was the fact that they entered Piastri into the competition, given that the only thing that was required to win was to safeguard Leclerc. The Woking team has also been reprimanded for the fact that they do not have a driver that is clearly the number one. At the conclusion of the season, it is possible that we will be required to pay for this. It makes no difference whether these statements are accurate or not. McLaren will continue to struggle with the same issues as long as it continues to lose races. Following the conclusion of the race, Lando Norris shared his thoughts with Sky Sports regarding the events that occurred on the first lap. Naturally, if I had been in a position to do so, I would have just slowed down a little bit later. Because there was a significant amount of room behind and between our two vehicles, there was no safety concern. To be comfortable, he got way too close to me. It would have been possible for both of us to pass through that turn if I had slowed down even 1 minute earlier. Obviously, if I had the ability to go back in time, there are some things that I would probably do differently. The situation, however, is exactly as it is. The race was won by both Oscar and Charles, who both drove quite well. When Norris was asked about the general mood of the team, he responded with a more positive attitude. Taking a look back is a wonderful moment. On a consistent basis, things are examined. Everything is going so smoothly right now. We simply did not have a good day today, and as a result, we did not get things right. I wouldn't claim that we were wrong about them either, though. Since the beginning of the season, McLaren has been losing money due to errors in everything they do, including poor planning and sloppy pit stops. These errors have caused the team to lose money. Nevertheless, the number of errors that they commit without intending to do so is becoming an increasingly worrying trend. Due to the fact that McLaren plainly performs better, they ought to be at the top of both lists without any difficulty. However, despite the fact that the track is not particularly designed for it, the MCL38 was the fastest car in both the practice session and the race. At Monza, it was clearly conceivable to claim a 1-2, and doing so would have made a significant statement if it had been accomplished. Naturally, there are still 8 rounds left in the year, which means that there will be further opportunities on the table. The issues that have been plaguing Red Bull have not been resolved, which has enabled Andrea Stella's team to get closer to capturing both crowns. However, McLaren should not believe that their performance advantage cannot be surpassed by anyone else. It is possible that Ferrari and Mercedes could come into contact with each other. The only thing that is required for Red Bull to get back on track is one poor race. In spite of the fact that the MCL 38 has the greatest time, Norris and Piastri need to perform almost the same. Something that occurred during the course of this past weekend that made matters even more difficult was the fact that the pit wall often reminded the drivers to keep in mind the papaya rules. All of us are aware that Formula One is always looking for a fresh term to talk about. The phrase papaya rules was popularized by McLaren at the Italian Grand Prix, which is where it was first used. When Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri blocked the front row at Monza, it was the first time those two drivers employed it. In order to maintain the integrity of the race, Andrea Stella, the director of the team, reprimanded the drivers of the team in a harsh manner. This new phrase, papaya rules, appears to be McLaren's way of stating keep your racing clean, but in a manner that is compatible with the business requirements of the corporation, given that papaya is the official color of the company. Just prior to the race, despite the fact that Norris was running behind schedule because to papaya regulations, Joseph Norris's race engineer informed him that he could still compete in the Piastri race. Once Stella had qualified for the race at Monza, he provided his own interpretation of what the phrase meant. Our recommendation is always racing with the papaya rules, whereby when the car is papaya, like you are always careful with any other competitor, but if the car is papaya, you take even extra care, he said. On the other hand, rather than considering my teammate to be my primary competitor, we need to make sure that we see the checkered flag and make an effort to drive the race as a team. Taking into consideration how competitive the car is, this is of utmost importance. This type of thinking is not helpful to us, so we make an effort to avoid engaging in it any longer. Norris was asked to clarify the meaning of the word, and after Piastri had passed him on the first lap of the race, he did it in a much more concise manner, saying the phrase means, try not to crash. It is all that. To say that Piastri performed a good job would be an understatement. When it comes to Formula One, it is not a novel concept for friends, particularly those who are near the head of the race, to adhere to these instructions. Not only that, but this is the very first time that these regulations have been officially acknowledged under a catch-all word that also suits the name of the team that is important to the situation. Moreover, following Piastri's dangerous maneuver on his teammate at Monza, the leader of the McLaren team, the following occurred. It should be emphasized that these regulations are not written in stone and could be altered depending on the circumstances, particularly given the fact that they are moving closer and closer to winning the Formula One 2024 championship. Because of this, Andrea Stella has stated that McLaren would investigate their papaya rules and the manner in which their drivers conduct themselves. This comes after Lando Norris claimed that he and Oscar Piastri came dangerously close to crashing during the opening lap of the Italian Grand Prix. Following the advice that Stella gave to his drivers, they should adhere to the fruit guidelines and not. Given that Norris finished in first place at Monza, they should not consider their teammate to be a competitor. They would not be able to achieve a better finish with that. In order to ensure that the cars were adhering to all of the rules, McLaren would conduct inspections. First, the two buddies got off to a strong start, and by the time they reached the turn 1/2 chicane, they were already ahead of Piastri. However, the Australian eventually caught up to them at the second chicane. In addition to taking the initiative to take the lead, he also, despite Norris's best efforts, Charles Leclerc was able to take second place. The individual from the United Kingdom believes that if he had slowed down 1 meter later, we would have most likely been involved in a collision. The matter will be examined by US. Stella was questioned about whether or not Piastri had adhered to the papaya regulations during the press conference that he had after the race. It will be necessary for us to discuss it with the drivers, review the videos, and try to get an understanding of their perspective. After that, we shall come to a consensus as a group over whether or not they were entirely compliant. If there is any learning that needs to be done, we will learn it, and then we will adjust the rules of the papaya so that we can compete in both the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship in the most effective manner possible. The reason for this is because we need to be able to determine that there are other possibilities outside only winning the Constructors' Championship. As far as being a driver is concerned, the way the car is functioning at the moment, as well as some of the issues that we observe with Red Bull, it is possible without a shadow of a doubt. Lando and the rest of the team need to be prepared to compete for both titles if we want to achieve our goal of winning both of them as a group. Piastri scored 18 points on Sunday, while Norris scored 15 points from the bench. As a result of Leclerc's deployment of a one-stop plan, he was able to win the race ahead of his teammates working for McLaren. McLaren had a difficult weekend, and as a result, the driver who currently holds the title, Max Verstappen, only scored 8 points. In the event that McLaren had switched drivers, the number could have been 59. Stella is quoted as saying, "We didn't think about that. We came up with other strategies to ensure that Lando had his own opportunities while the race was going on." Despite this, we decided against implementing the modification since we were still determined to put as much pressure as possible on Leclerc. However, he did mention that McLaren might be able to accomplish it in future races due to the fact that Norris is in the greatest position to challenge Verstappen for the World Championship. Both of the drivers are in the running for the championship, according to the calculations. On the basis of the figures, he stated that Lando is unquestionably in the best possible scenario. In light of the fact that we are fighting against Max Verstappen, I am of the opinion that if we are going to assist one driver, it ought to be the drivers who are now in the most advantageous position. In addition, I believe that Lando has been doing quite well. Already you are aware of this. At the same way that pole position was available at Zandvoort, this is also available. Any and all things pertaining to Lando. In order to take advantage of holding pole position as we did here in Monza, we need to make a few little adjustments to the way that we race. These adjustments could be beneficial to him, or to us more generally. If we take a moment to reflect on this first lap that we completed together, I believe that we might be able to identify a few things that we could have done a little bit more better. Red Bull is currently 8 points ahead of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, which they won 2 races ago. There are 8 races left in the championship as of yesterday. Nevertheless, after all of these little errors, would they also be able to win the Drivers' Championship? Do you have any thoughts? Please share your thoughts by filling out the form below. With the stakes higher than ever, McLaren's future in the Constructors' Championship hangs in the balance. The cracks in their drivers' relationship are widening, and only time will tell if they can find a way to work together. What do you think? Is McLaren on the brink of collapse? Or can they turn things around before it's too late? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of the latest in Formula One. Until next time, keep racing.